Lois has the Drash for us today.
Shabbat Shalom. The Torah portion we read today deals with the treatment of the Hebrew slaves, retribution concerning civil laws for manslaughter, kidnapping, disputes, and parents. The slaves would either be released from slavery or considered property of the master after serving 6 years. The one exception is in verse 6, where the slave decides to stay of his own free will. If he chose, he would be taken to the doorpost or the mezuzah. Yeah, I have a mezuzah on a chain. I should have worn that today. And his ear would be pierced for all to see, and his blood would be on the doorpost as evidence of his decision to relinquish his freedom permanently. And this is a type of redemption through blood. The first mention of doorpost or mezuzah is in the Passover account. The lamb's blood is applied to the lintel, the top of the door, and the side post. The act marked the household as being redeemed. In Hebrew, it's galal. And the death angel would pass over the house. Similarly, the slave was marked as belonging to the household from here on out. Instead of emancipation, he chose to identify himself as belonging to the household of his master. And I don't know, but maybe this is where the term earmarked came from. Some of these laws here were given. Some of these laws given here were adopted by America's founding fathers, dealing with kidnapping, manslaughter, or first-degree murder. They realized the authority of the Bible was the best starting point for our nation. How many of you ever been to D.C. and looked at the Supreme Court? Okay, on the lintel, it has Moses depicted as a lawgiver. As an aside, when the Torah was lifted up, if you saw some of the unusual spacing in there, 10 Commandments. In the Haftorah, Jeremiah deals with the disobedience of the people regarding their slaves. The backstory of this Haftorah section is that the Babylonians were attacking Jerusalem and the surrounding cities. God told Jeremiah that he was giving Jerusalem into the hands of the Babylonians, and the king Zedekiah would not escape. Zedekiah initially told the people to free their slaves, but later he said, nah. He reneged on the edict. This displeased God, and he reminded them that they had once been slaves in Egypt, and they were delivered and freed by Hashem himself. And God takes making a covenant very seriously. In verse 18, there's a reference to the covenant God made with Abraham back in Genesis 15. God told Abraham to cut the sacrifice in half. Then a smoking firepot or blazing torch depicting God passed between the pieces. This represented the agreement to the covenant. And the visual image was saying, I will agree to this covenant to my death. I may be killed and split in two if I ever break my promise. I sign my name to this covenant in blood and sacrifice. In Jeremiah, the leaders did not follow the terms of the covenant, and God reminded them that they promised to the terms of the covenant to their death. By nullifying the agreement, God would collect by means of their own lives. In verse 15, there's a term called darar, and it's called free flowing. It means free flowing or rapidly. And that's what God did. This is what God declares the release that would come to them to fall by the sword, plague, and famine. God wasn't wasting any time about bringing judgment on those who broke covenant. Through all the rebellion and disregard for the covenant they'd made, Jeremiah 33, 20, 25, and 26, which is the other portion that we read, gives hope to the people. God compares his covenant with Israel as with day and night and the fixed laws of heaven and earth. If these are violated, then he will reject the descendants of Jacob and David, and he will restore their fortunes and have compassion on them. So much for replacement theology. Brit Hadashah reading is a familiar passage about what's commonly referred to as the Last Supper. Here we see Yeshua and the Talmudim at the Seder prior to his trial and execution. Yeshua knows what is to come, and by whose hand he will be betrayed, yet reminding them that this would fulfill the Tanakh prophecies. The bread and the wine distributed to the 12 is a picture of the new covenant that would soon be ratified by the blood of Messiah, once for all mankind, and is still in effect for all who believe today.